completely mad?
No, you're insane!
Hello, and welcome to the Madhouse, episode 82. I'm Ultimate Spy 53, the host of this week's podcast, and joining me for this episode, I have...
Steven, also known as Steve Kovoc. Hi, how's it going? I'm Steven. I exist.
I'm Lucas.
Okay, cool, yeah. I figure in terms of topics, there's not a whole lot really to talk about, but I figure, we haven't had a standard chat in a while to talk about whatever the fuck we want to talk about, because mainly this podcast is centered on just the new stuff, but there's not really anything new to talk about, because when I first started this podcast, I wanted to have it be about new entertainment things, like new cool things in the industry of the movies and TV and even gaming, and there's not really a lot of things right now that I really am into, but there's one thing, a couple of things that I do want to talk about, and one other thing that I'm really excited for that's coming up. I'm going to briefly mention it, even though neither of you really watched the shows, but you should probably watch the shows if you are into comic books, and that is the DC TV crossover event that's going on actually on Monday. So basically, there's a whole theme with the cinematic universe about crossovers with Marvel and DC, and with DC movies, they decided they were to copy Marvel, and basically instead of having building their universe slowly like Marvel did, they are just rushing at it. They're just like, you know what, we don't care. We're just gonna go at it. And then of course the CW created their own little thing called Arrow, and it was actually really good. It was actually a DC comic show based off of the character the Green Arrow, which is a vigilante superhero. He doesn't really have power, but he's really good with a bow. And then of course the Flash spawned from that. The character Barry Allen came onto the show, and then that spawned to a whole new series. And then I think around a year later or something, they finally spawned another series called Legends of Tomorrow. And then finally the CBS picked up another DC show based off of the character Supergirl, which is the cousin of Superman, and that was actually really good. But people were like, well, that's a DC character, so why can't they cross over on Earth? So it's like, we can't really do that. And then eventually, it's like, they did it, but it wasn't great, because they did not include much Supergirl at all. And actually, Supergirl's a really good show, actually, because they've introduced a lot of vital cores to the Justice League in the comics. I don't really read the comics, but I do know of a lot of them, and the movie looks awful. I'm not gonna see it. It honestly looks awful. I saw one scene from the YouTube, and it was like, cool, okay, goodbye. I watched one scene from the movie where Superman, he's alive again, and Flash, which looks awful. Race is like, great. I'm not wasting my money. Literally, I looked into the trailer, and one scene from the movie is like, yeah, I'd rather not waste my money on a movie that's gonna just. I mean, it's 39% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's awful. That's they're screwed. So it's like, the TV shows are way better. And so they're making a new crossover that's coming in 2 days called Crisis on Earth X. Essentially what that is, it's an Earth where the idea was actually introduced in the crossover between Flash and Supergirl when that episode aired, where Barry was saying that there's an Earth where the Nazis basically won World War II, and it's basically all evil versions of the characters, and they invade.
What are you talking about?
So basically, there's an Earth in the multiverse of DC Comics where the Nazis won World War II, and they're all all the characters, all the heroes we have gotten to know better in the CW DC universe. They're all evil now, and so basically they've come to Earth 1. And they are basically now evil, and they want to take over the world, and that's the whole event. So, the characters that are going to be in the crossover, which I'm excited for because I actually like all these shows, they're really good shows, are the Flash, the good Flash, because the one on the movies looks awful. I mean, have you seen that suit? It looks like a cross between Iron Man and just a cosplay that went wrong. It just looks, when I first saw the trailer for the movie back before, I think it was maybe last year, I'm like, oh, it's Iron Man meets Quicksilver. Great. This is gonna be great. And then it turns out it's I'm not gonna waste my time with the movie because it looks awful. And
What movie?
well, I'm talking about the Flash, which is not because it's two different Flashes of Flash now, and I didn't want to see that, and so basically I just completely ignored it because it's Iron Man versus a cross between Iron Man and Quicksilver.
I saw some of the commercials for it. It looks kind of.
It looks rushed and bland and ugly and just ugh. So basically, the heroes we get in the crossover are the Grant Gustin version of the Flash, which is actually way more accurate to the comics. I mean, they changed the suit in season 4, and it looks really good to the comics. I haven't actually read the comics, but I've seen images from what he looks like in the comic book, and it's pretty damn close to the comics. They did a really good job with it, which is fantastic, I think. So, I mean, I'm not really a comic book reader. I should be. I keep saying to myself I'm not a comic book reader. I have read a few of them. I just haven't really gotten around to it yet, because I'm more like into the live action versions. But we're gonna have Flash, we're gonna have Green Arrow, we're gonna have Supergirl, no Superman because of the whole Justice League thing, which is stupid, because they can't have certain characters. We're also gonna have.
Let us have it as a TV show.
Yeah, definitely, it's ridiculous. But we're also gonna have Vibe, Killer Frost. A new the Dinah Drake version of Black Canary, Mr. Terrific. We're also gonna have
dude, this one's awesome.
Vixen, Zari, which is a new character on Legends of Tomorrow. Wild Dog. No Martian Manhunter because he's busy with the DO. Also, apparently his storyline is his father came to Earth and he wants to rekindle his friendship, his relationship with his father. So Martian Manhunter is not gonna be in the crossover. John Jones is going to be in the crossover, but only for a brief time. We're also going to have Firestorm somehow. I don't know, the unfused version of Firestorm is going to be in the crossover, but I don't know if the actual character. I assume so because he was in the trailers, so I assume he's going to be in the crossover. But so the funny thing about trailers is they show the character in the trailer, but when you see the actual the photos, he's not in it. So he's gonna be in the crossover as Firestorm, but he's not in the promotional pictures. But if you don't know what Firestorm is, he's basically a nuclear superhero that was introduced on the Flash. Basically, this flaming man, the combination of Professor Martin Stein in these two comics, and Jefferson Jackson. Jackson. It's a weird name. I don't know how you say it. If these together became Firestorm, this flying heat guy. Basically, think of Human Torch of Marvel, but not. It's complicated. We're also gonna have Adam, who, if you don't know what Adam is, he's basically the Marvel equivalent to DC equivalent to Ant-Man. He can do the same exact stuff. He can shrink, not really grow in strength, but he can basically have the same powers as Ant-Man, but it's more technologically based. Like he invented this suit. He doesn't have powers. His strength technology is in his suit, all that stuff. And he was introduced on the Flash. A lot of the characters were introduced on Flash and Arrow. I think what else is there going to be? A lot of the characters that we see in the Flash aren't going to be in the crossover. But there's still a lot of characters that are going to be in it that I'm excited for. Alex Danvers is going to be in it, who wasn't in the last year one, which sucks because that was, well, it wasn't a bad crossover, but it was more of a Supergirl, because Supergirl wasn't really in it a lot, which sucks. It's terrible news that was even a thing. But we're also gonna have, let's see, Heatwave is in it. Citizen Cold, the Earth X version of Captain Cold, because Captain Cold was killed off in Legends of Tomorrow. I think that's all the heroes, I want to say. I don't think we're having Black Siren. She's basically the Earth 2 version of Laurel Lance, who was the original Black Canary. But that's pretty much all the heroes that I can think of. I know Vixen is going to be in it, who is, she has the power for her totem to, transform into, she has, when she touches the totem, her strength becomes one of the one of several animal kingdom characters, like a gorilla, an elephant, all these characters, all these animals, and she is basically has the strength of those animals. It's pretty cool. But basically, plot of the crossover is Barry Allen and Iris West are getting married, and the evil versions of them from Earth, Earth X, the Nazi versions basically, are basically crashing the wedding, and they want to take over a world or whatever, and it's crazy. It's awesome. Also, if you're a fan of Doctor Who, this is a perfect opportunity because Russell Tavoy, who played Alonzo in Doctor Who, one of the episodes, he is going to play a new character called the Ray. And he's also going to be voicing the character in the CW Seed show, but he's playing the character of the Ray, which is I believe a character from Earth X. But if you don't know the actor, he played Alonzo in 2 episodes of Doctor Who. He's the character that made David Tennant basically go, I wanted to meet a guy named Alonzo, and bam, it happened. So. Basically, that's what I'm really excited for, the crossover. I thought I should just mention it. I'm actually, it is the only good part about DC Comics right now, is the DCW shows, because, it is not, the DC, movies just suck. They just suck. I mean, you get a lot more, familiar actors on the DC shows, like Arthur Darvill. So it's basically the second Doctor Who actor. Arthur Darvill is going to he played Rip Hunter on Legends of Tomorrow, and then now I don't think he's playing the character anymore. But basically, that is a summary of what the crossover is. If you are interested in seeing it, what I would do is, if you have a Netflix subscription, watch all 4 shows. I would start with Arrow seasons 1 through 2. I think Flash storyline picks up during season 2 of Arrow, and then there's a crossover, and then Legends of Tomorrow picks up after season 2 of Flash, I want to say, in season 4 of Arrow, and then Supergirl, that crossover with Flash doesn't happen until about, almost the end of Supergirl season 1, and then that's pretty much the whole 4 shows. So yeah, it's pretty much why DC TV comics right now are better than TV, or movies. I meant to say movies. Why would I say TV? So people who don't agree, they say that the Grant Gustin version of the Flash is a whiny bitch. Come on, at least he doesn't look like Iron Man. Come on. I mean, seriously, have you seen the costume from the Justice League movie? It looks awful. It looks like, literally, when I first saw it, I'm like, wait, did Iron Man meet the Flash now? What's going on? I was so confused. Why is he even in the movie? I mean, people liked it for some reason, but it's it just looks forced. Like Steven was saying, the movie looks rushed, and it looks like it wasn't. Right. It didn't take its time. What I would have liked to see, and I think I might have talked about this quite several times on this podcast in particular, was if they had gone the original Marvel approach, which was building their universe better. I would have liked them to have done Man of Steel, and then have done the Batman, and then have done Wonder Woman, and then Aquaman, The Flash, with Grant Gustin, the TV show of The Flash.
Yeah. It seems like Man of Steel, right before Batman vs. Superman. I mean, at the beginning of Batman vs. Superman, you saw Batman driving into, it's implied that whole incident inspired him to become Batman.
Yes, definitely.
So they should have had that move. Well, they should have Superman first, then have a Batman movie second.
Yeah. The Batman. Yeah.
Have something in between that and Batman vs. Superman.
Yeah, definitely. And then have all the other solo movies before Batman vs. Superman, and then finally have Justice League.
Batman vs. Superman felt like it.
With Grant Gustin, because I think they had I think the idea of before they had the Batman vs. Superman movie was they had the possibility of having Grant Gustin's Flash from the TV show into the movie. In fact, there was an interview with Stephen Amell, who plays Green Arrow in Arrow, and he was I think it might have been an earlier season. He was I could see a movie, a Justice League movie or something, where my character Green Arrow, or at the time the Arrow, is standing next to Wonder Woman and Batman or whatever, and I would love that. But they decided that, we're not like Marvel. We want our universes to be completely separate. The DC shows on the CW are in a completely different plane of existence on the DC universe than the movies. And that's what upset fans the most, and that's what Marvel is way better, because, we haven't gotten an Infinity War trailer yet, but at least DC TV knows what they're doing. They actually know how to, make a good crossover. But with you know, DC movies, they just did not realize they had such an opportunity they could have done with the TV actors, and they could have just done that, and they decided not to, and it's ruining the movies. Like the you know, you got Batman v Superman, which was one of the worst movies they've released. When I first saw it, I didn't hate it, but I also didn't like it. I thought it was okay. It was kind of boring, honestly. I didn't like it. I didn't like it, but I didn't think it was a terrible movie. I just think there were some issues.
Like, I'm a huge Batman fan.
Yeah.
They characterized Batman in that movie just pissed me off.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, and
they basically showed him as a merciless killer.
Definitely, that was the big problem with it.
A bunch of people who were just bodyguards of a different guy, just so that he could get like a special, like kryptonite or something.
Definitely, yeah, it was a big problem.
He's so rich. You could have just made some killing.
Yeah, definitely. That was a big issue with that.
You could bribe them. You could say, "I'm going to give you this much money, and you're going to give me the kryptonite."
Yep, that's totally what what the character was done.
Batman would have done.
And that's what the problem with that movie was his characterization of Batman, because he wasn't supposed to be a killer. And I mean, I haven't read the Batman comics, but
He was supposed to be.
watched the movies, so.
He was supposed to be a good, like, cop, essentially. A cop with a lot of gear, essentially.
And that's what made
much more advanced.
Yeah, that's what made the movie not do as well at the box office, even though it made a ton of money, I heard, but it was not successful at all. In fact, it was one of the weakest. It was one of the more weakest movies. And then of course, Suicide came along. Everyone was like bashing on Joker and Harley Quinn. It's like everyone's so terrible. It's like I actually enjoyed it. I literally came into that movie blind without knowing a thing. Well, I knew some about the Joker and Harley Quinn. I knew a little bit about it, but I wasn't particularly familiar with that character. I mean, I've seen the character in previous movies, but I'm not super familiar with the Joker. Now, I mean, now I am now, but like before, I think I had seen Dark Knight. I'm like, okay, now I know what the Joker is. I think I hadn't even seen Harley Quinn before in a movie, and I went to the movie, just blind, like I had no idea who these characters were. I hadn't even know what Suicide Squad was, like the team. And I went and I'm like, this isn't bad. It's enjoyable. Although it was really badly received. I think it scored 24% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is really, really, really weak. But nevertheless, it's still, in my opinion, only a decent movie. At least it's fun to watch. It's interesting. Although it isn't perfect, but they tried, and I think that's worth it. And then of course they have,
Superman?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
It didn't feel like they're trying super hard. It just felt like they were trying to cram in as much story as possible.
Definitely.
And the funny thing is, even before the movie started, there was like an ad for a Jeep. The Jeep that Batman just drove for.
Oh my God.
Beginning of Batman vs Superman.
Wow.
And they showed that scene basically before the movie started.
That's ridiculous.
I was watching that with you. Remember?
Yeah, I don't remember that though.
A commercial for like the car that Batman drove to the building. Or whatever.
I don't remember that. I mean, it's been over a year, but like, I don't remember that at all. But
it was ridiculous.
And then of course, Justice League was all hyped. It's like, oh, this movie's gonna be awesome, and it looked awful. I mean, it legitimately looked like it was awful. It's like, oh yeah, Superman's not in it. None of the vital characters of Justice League are in it. It looks rushed. It looks like it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be dark and gritty, and it looks just awful. And I'm like, well, Superman's dead. How can he come back? Oh, there's maybe the Red Sun. He can cure him, and he can be alive again. And it's like,
magic.
But I don't want to see a movie about two different versions of the Flash. And my problem with the DC universe on the movie side of things is the fact that it's like we have all these characters introduced in this movie, but their origins are going to be explained in the movies coming next year. It's like, no, okay, I'm gonna see no more movies from you. I saw your two good ones that I liked. I saw Suicide Squad and Wonder Woman. I liked them. I refuse to watch the rest of them.
Oh, and towards the end, Batman vs Superman, an example of just how bad it was towards the end, the plot.
Oh yeah, that part of the movie made it bad, and that's what. And that's why the rest of the DC universe on the movie side is just screwed with the CW. They are actually doing really well with their characters. They are doing pretty well with crossing over. They're doing really well with with mentioning characters. They just like there's been a lot like you had the Flash. There was a Flash episode where you had a newspaper with Oliver Queen getting becoming identified as the Green Arrow. That was a cool crossover, and they're doing a really good job with that. And the crossover with coming up on Monday, which is going to be really different because it's going to be 2 nights, but 4 different shows. It'll be Supergirl and Arrow on Monday, and then Flash and Legends tomorrow on Thursday. And I forgot one more character that is going to be in the crossover that I completely forgot about, Steel. So if you don't know who Steel is, he was introduced on Legends of Tomorrow. He basically is a historian known by Nate Haywood, and he suddenly discovered he has the power basically of, if you recognize the character of Colossus from X-Men, he essentially has the exact same powers as Colossus. He can turn himself into like a steel compound, and he's super strong, and he's basically like Colossus. He has the same skin as Colossus. So basically that's the idea, and it's actually really cool. But overall, I'm really excited for the crossover, and I can't wait for it. It's gonna be really fucking awesome. I think it'll be a way different turn of events than last year, because last year I didn't think last year sucked. I just think it was not as big as I wanted it to be, because I was hoping that it'd be like an actual 4 crossover, and it was, but they included like way less Supergirl, and that was the problem.
Right. And
it just didn't do as well. But with this year, it sounds like it's gonna be really freaking awesome. There's gonna be so many characters, and like those of you who like World War II stuff, there's gonna be Nazis in it, or at least a version of Nazis from a different Earth, because there was the idea of the multiverse, and now there's like other shows coming out, like Black Lightning coming in 2018. Oh, apparently he's on the same network and he's a DC character, but he's gonna be in a different universe, which is annoying. It's like, come on, why can't they do these things with shows and have them on the same network but be in a completely different universe? But of course, there's Barry Allen. He's the fast man in life. He can make breaches, or Vibe who can make breaches. But that's pretty much all I can say about the crossover. I'm super excited. Is there anything about that you want to discuss with me? Because I can talk about this all day. Any characters
I haven't seen any of them.
Oh, you should. No, they're out there. So the first
a lot of people.
The first 5 seasons of Arrow, which is a really, really good show. The weirdly thing about that show is that it wasn't until season 4 that he finally got the character Green Arrow. Like the mantle of Green Arrow finally got named. He was like the Arrow. He was like the season 1 he was the Hood, and then season 2 to 4 he was the Arrow, and then he finally became Green Arrow in season 4. So yeah, first 5 seasons of Arrow are on Netflix, and then you also have season 1 through 3 of Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, season 1 and 2, and Supergirl 1 and 2 are both on Netflix. All those shows, if you want to see, you want to get caught up, I would start with Arrow first, and then there's a thing in season 2 where Barry Allen is introduced, and then you watch The Flash, and I think there's a point in the show where I think they end, like there's like another crossover which leads into Legends of Tomorrow, which is the Arthur Darvill-led show. He's basically playing a character. He was also known for Doctor Who. And then, of course, there's a crossover on Supergirl, which is basically the first, like, cross-network crossover, but it's a good crossover, and then they have other ones like that, but pretty good still. If you like the DC comic shows, and you don't like the movies, but you still want DC comics, live-action shows in your life, then I would recommend checking out the Arrowverse, because it is honestly one of the best versions of DC Comics live-action, because the DC,
that's what I've heard.
Universe sucks in the movies, at least. It's just, like, it looks gross. It's like, I literally watched this clip of Superman, he's live again, versus the Ezra Miller version of Flash, which is honestly one of the worst versions of Flash I've seen. And they're racing, it's like, yeah, this is cool. I was like, it's cool, but it's so badly cool. Like, it looks so bad that it's like cool, sort of. I don't know. It's complicated to explain, but basically the way I would explain it is Zack Snyder should not be directing a DC movie because they went through so many bad stuff with this movie. I heard it with Justice League because it was so. The reason why it was so rushed in the first place and why it's such a bad movie now, because it got 39% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is even worse than, say, Star Wars Episode 1 at the box office in terms of ratings. Some people like it, I loved it, but that one, we had the I think it was they deal with I think Zack Snyder's daughter, he's the director of the movie. His daughter apparently passed away, and so he had to take time off from the movie. I think it was the editing stage of the movie to take time with grieving for his daughter's loss, which is a very unfortunate incident, but it was still a thing he had to take care of. And then of course he's like, oh, we have to do research for the movie, so let's call in someone who is pretty good with superhero movies, who's done a pretty good ensemble movie like this. So they called on Joss Whedon, who is known for his work on both Avengers movies, and he came in and did some research for the reshoots for the movie, and it still turned out awful. I have heard very bad things about it. It's really bad. I can't believe that people would think this movie was awesome. I mean, when I first saw like the final trailer, I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be cool. I'm so excited for this movie. It's gonna be awesome. All the sarcasm intended, because it's one of those movies where you're like, this movie looks so bad. It looks so good, but it's bad. You know it's gonna be bad, but it's so cool. Like, because everyone thinks it's cool, and it's like, because I literally would see comments on the trailer, and people are like, I am so excited for this movie. It's like, good for you. Have fun with it. I'm sure you'll enjoy it, because everyone else is gonna love it totally. It's gonna totally be awesome, and it turns out it's actually pretty bad. So, yeah, that's really all I can say about that particular topic. What do you guys think of that?
But yeah, I'll have to watch this at some point.
What? Don't even bother with it. You're wasting your money, dude. Seriously, you are wasting your money on a bad movie. Why? Are you legitimately gonna be watching a movie that has a 39% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and already people are saying it's awful?
I don't know.
No, I'm talking about
some bad movies.
Are you talking about the Arrowverse, or are you talking about DC movies?
I'm talking about the Arrowverse.
Oh, okay. I was confused. I'm like, Lucas, why would you watch a movie that everyone says sucks?
No, I gave up on the cinematic universe after that.
Exactly. It's like, it's literally pointless to watch the movies at this point. Yeah, that's really all I can say about DC Marvel, mainly DC stuff. I just wanted to bring it up because it's an issue and it's out and it's pointless to watch. You're basically wasting your money now. So yeah, don't watch it. You're wasting your time and your money on a movie. It's basically the Emoji Movie all over again. And that one movie, I saw the honest trailer for the Emoji Movie, and I'm like, I'm really glad I didn't see the movie because it looks awful. That movie is so bad. It's like, I have seen the trailer for the honest trailer for Screen Junkies. It's hilariously bad. It's like it's one of the worst animated movies ever made. I can genuinely say that. It looks awful. Don't bother watching it. I hope you guys didn't watch it because I heard it's really freaking bad.
My siblings watched it and I saw what it was.
Oh my god. Like I remember I saw a post on before I left the Rich Teeth page on Facebook, and the co-founder Bernie Burns, he said it was a tweet. He said he was saying that he had gotten back from the Emoji Movie. He said, I went to the Emoji Movie. I took my kids to the Emoji Movie. Now I hate my own kids. I mean, of course, he was being sarcastic, but it's like, it's hilarious because he's like, he went to a movie with his kids, one of the worst received animated movies of all time of this year, and he's like, I hate my own kids. Of course, I'm pretty sure that's the sarcasm thing, because he couldn't hate his own kids, obviously, it was a joke, but it was like, it's a sense of humor because he's talking about a really shitty movie. So, I mean, I remember when we had a podcast talking about that movie, and it's like, you know what Patrick Stewart's voicing? What? He's voicing a turd, aka a shit in a movie about emojis. So it basically, what I'm saying is Justice League is about as bad as that movie. And
but yeah, when I grew up watching cartoons,
yeah, exactly,
the Captain Picard was going to
I just couldn't believe this movie was made. Anyway, that's all I have for that topic. I just thought I would bring it up because I know it's something that like, it's kind of in the now, and they're doing, the CW is doing a lot better with their movies, and the DC universe, I just think I think at this point they should stop while they're ahead. They should stop making movies because they're not gonna be successful. I feel like with a studio like the DC universe, extended universe, I feel like they know that movies are not doing well. Then why do they make movies? Why do they need to make more movies if they know their movie universe is sucking? I don't understand it. Like, why would you, if you were, let's say you guys let's say we were a studio and we wanted to make a movie. We had a plan for movies. Our first 3 didn't work out. Why would we make more? I don't understand that.
That's something to watch, whether they review it or not.
I know, but, like, they don't realize how bad it is. Anyway, that's all I had to say about that. I just thought it'd be something fun to talk about because it's still happening. Regardless of whether we like it or not, it's still happening. Anyway, so on to the next topic at hand that is actually really freaking awesome that was announced. So, for those of you who are big Tolkien fans and love Lord of the Rings, like I do, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. I've actually been playing a lot of the Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth quests. I've been doing a lot of that on my channel, and apparently with the success of both, well, not really the success of Hobbit, but more the success of Lord of the Rings, apparently Amazon is making a new TV series, which apparently, at first it was going to be a TV series based off of the actual, Lord of the Rings, but it's like, well, they can't, well, why would they do, well, it's not that they can't, it's like, why would they do it? Because they already made a very, very successful trilogy. Why would they make a TV series based off that? But then I realized, oh wait, they probably won't be doing that. They'll probably be making a prequel. I have the article right here. I was gonna read it to you if you don't mind. Okay, so here's the article. In its quest to launch a hit fantasy series of the Game of Thrones caliber, which I'm not going to watch anytime soon, Amazon has closed a massive deal, said to be close to $250 million to acquire global TV rights to The Lord of the Rings, based on the fantasy novels by J.R.R. Tolkien. The streaming service has given a multi-season commitment to a Lord of the Rings series in the pact, which also includes a potential spin-off series. That would be awesome. The Lord of the Rings original series, a prequel to Tolkien's The Fellowship of the Ring, will be produced by Amazon Studios in cooperation with the Tolkien Estate and Trust. Great. HarperCollins and New Line Cinema division of Warner Brothers Entertainment, which produced the hugely successful Lord of the Rings movie franchises, were awesome, by the way. No details about the deal were disclosed, but it is believed to be dwarfing any TV series packed to date with a whopping price tag attached. I think that dwarfing thing is a pun. Pretty bad pun. I don't know why they would do that. Amazon, Netflix, and HBO have been approached by the Tolkien estate, who had been shopping the project. It came with an upfront rights payment said to be in the $200 million to $250 million range, and I hear Amazon landed the rights by paying close to $250 million. That is just for the rights, before any costs for development, talent, and production. In proposition whose finances industry observers called insane, it is a payment that is made sight unseen, as there is no concept and there are no creative auspices attached to the possible series. On top of that, the budget for a fantasy series of that magnitude is likely to be $100 million to $150 million a season. That's crazy. The Lord of the Rings is a cultural phenomenon that has captured the imagination of generations of fans through literature and the big screen, says Sharon Tell, I don't even know how to pronounce that last name, head of scripted series at Amazon Studios. We are honored to be working with the Tolkien Estate and Trust, HarperCollins, and New York Line on this exciting collaboration for television, and are thrilled to be taking the Lord of the Rings fans on a new epic journey in Middle-earth. Okay, so the story will be apparently what they have so far. Set in Middle-earth, the television adaptation will explore new storylines preceding Tolkien's The Fellowship of the Ring. That's awesome. I hear that there are some creative restrictions imposed by the rights holders on what can be done and what can't be done in a Lord of the Rings TV series. We are delighted that Amazon, with its long-standing commitment to literature, is the home of the first ever multi-season television series for The Lord of the Rings, said Matt Galsor, a representative for the Tolkien Estate and Trust and HarperCollins. Sharon and the team at Amazon Studios have exceptional ideas to bring to the screen previously unexplored stories based on J.R.R. Tolkien's original writings. Given Amazon's mandate to launch a big fantasy series of the scope of the fuck that bloody series is, I want to watch it, which comes directly from Honcho Jeff Bezos and Amazon's deep coffers, the company was considered the leading contender for a Lord of the Rings series. But Bezos has been hands-on involved in the matters of entertainment division Amazon Studios following the purge of its top executives led by Roy Price, and has been taking meetings and making calls to agents. The Lord of the Rings deal eclipsed some big-ticket series commitments Amazon has made during the past couple of years, $80 million for the 6-episode Woody Allen show Crisis in 6 Scenes. What the hell? 70 million plus for Matt Weiner's 8-episode The Romanovs. Is that an Avengers thing? And $160 million for 2 seasons of David O. Russell's series, which now has been axed after about $40 million spent. Ouch. The last 2 series originally came from the Weinstein Company, which no longer has involvement in the Romanovs. The Tolkien estate and the publisher HarperCollins filed the massive lawsuit in November 2012 against Warner Brothers, its subsidiary New Line, and Middle-earth Enterprises, a division of Rings. Why would you call it Rings? Fuck. Like, seriously. We just call it Rings. It's not called the Lord of the Rings, it's just called the Rings. It's just called Rings. That's weird. A division of Rings Hobbit rights holder, the Saul Zane Company, claiming copyright infringement and breach of contract over video games, online slot machines, and other digital merchandising. With the $80 million lawsuit settled in July, the 2 sides have gotten on better terms following the bitter feud. The Tolkien estate shopped the TV series with reps for FEPS for Nolan Cinema. Warner Brothers Television, which would have been a logical partner, is not a studio on the Lord of the Rings series, which will be produced by Amazon Studios. That's awesome. I hear Amazon wanted to produce the series itself. That'd be a little weird. A Lord of the Rings TV series will provide corporate synergy for Amazon, the world's leading bookseller. Lord of the Rings novels was named Amazon customers' favorite book of the millennium in 1999. Still, that world already has been extensively explored on screen with the 3 great Lord of the Rings movies and 3 Hobbit films, obviously. Launched at that's pretty much the details about the movies itself. We don't need to hear about that. We already know about that. Anyway, that's the article. It's pretty long, but I thought it was worth talking about. But that's pretty much what we know. Pretty long article, but that's pretty interesting. Based off of what I've read so far, we should speculate about it. Like, what do you think this series will be? I don't know.
I would suspect it has something to do with the Silmarillion, if it's a prequel.
Well, no. Apparently, according to my brother, that's not gonna happen. Apparently, the Silmarillion is like a rights or something that just like certain aspects of that story just wouldn't really make sense for a adaptation. Apparently, that's what I've heard.
Right. No. But they would change a lot for sure. Like,
definitely.
That they did with Hobbit, they've changed just so much.
Yeah, totally.
So, I don't think that they care about changing a bunch of aspects of the Silmarillion.
Yeah.
Because, like, the basic story there could be adapted. It's just a lot of the details. Because that was written more like a history than like an actual.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
Novel. So
yeah, I think it was basically like a biography of what the Lord of the Rings, the world that he created was about. Like the exploring, expanded stories of Middle-earth, essentially.
Right.
Outside of Lord of the Rings.
The overarching narrative of, like the Sauron being a lieutenant of, I can't remember his name. But the first Dark Lord, basically the Satan equivalent. I'll probably just take some elements from the Silmarillion.
Yeah, totally.
Expand it into a whole.
Yeah, I mean.
I highly doubt they're going to create like an original story.
Yeah, it'd be really cool because, like, if they were doing, because, like, what they did with the game Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor and War, which is the sequel, it was basically a story within the world of Middle-earth that basically was set between Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. And I think because I was like, oh wait, they can't do a Lord of the we already have a Lord of the Rings, adaptation, but. Then of course I realized that this means that it's actually a prelude / prequel to Fellowship of the Ring, essentially, which would actually be really cool, because if they did things like a small Frodo, or they even had explored a backstory where Frodo's parents were alive. We never really got to see his childhood. We never got to see Frodo's childhood at all. That was never explored. That story was never told of Frodo's childhood and any of the Hobbit's childhood, like where each Hobbit's parents came from. Where Aragorn came from. We get a little backstory from him, but not a whole lot. We don't really get a whole lot of backstory from him. Just a lot of the characters that were in those both trilogies, we didn't really get a whole lot of story from them. We got their main idea of the story, but there's so much they could do if they do a series, and especially from Amazon, which is a pretty popular website, especially for streaming. It'd be an interesting idea if they did a TV series based off Lord of the Rings, especially in the world, especially with prequels, because unfortunately, The Hobbit, although it was it was good in its own way. Like, it had some good parts about it, but there were still a lot of issues. There were characters that did not need to be in the movie at all. It was stretched too far. Like, it did not need to be 3. There were some issues with The Hobbit. Although it wasn't a bad trilogy. It suffered a lot. It was just not the best of the 2 they've made, and that's saying a lot, because a lot of the scenes. I could have seen like for example, the Battle for the Five Armies. There was a whole scene where Elrond, Saruman, and Galadriel were fighting the Nine in like the climax of the movie, and like that whole scene could have just been taken out because they did not need to put that in there. I just didn't seem necessary. And if they do a series, it'd be really, really cool to see. Heck, a young Gandalf would be cool too. Like a young Aragorn, a young all these characters that could have gotten a backstory. It would be really, really nice to see a whole new chapter of the Middle Earth saga that we haven't seen before, because if that's what they're doing, I would totally love to see that. I mean, this is like the first. I mean, it is the first I've heard of it, because I didn't even know it was a thing. Because when I first heard about the news, I'm like, oh really? We already have Lord of the Rings, though. We don't need another version of Lord of the Rings. We essentially have 2 versions. We have the animated version. It was actually pretty crappy, and the really, 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 really good Peter Jackson one. I mean, that was one of the best, and I couldn't see another one. But now that I've realized that they're actually not referring to a Lord of the Rings TV series, but then of course there's the whole prequel thing, because there's so much stories they could tell. I mean, think about it. There's a lot they could do with it. There's a lot. I mean, for those of you who don't really know about Lord of the Rings, I mean, Steven here hasn't actually seen Lord of the Rings, which is a very big surprise to me. But I don't know. There's a lot they could do with the universe. I just don't know what they would do, because they could have so many different stories they could tell, especially with I don't know if they left out any scenes from The Hobbit that were like in the book. I don't know if they did. I think it all made it in.
They added a bunch that didn't need to be added.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Then they kind of through the scenes that were like actually in the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
So,
but yeah, I definitely think that the one character that was left out of the Lord of the Rings that was actually somewhat important was Tom Bombadil. He was a very I don't know. He was somewhat important, but he was completely cut out of the movie. And it was,
He was only in the first book, but he was quite memorable.
Yeah, I remember him being a very, very, interesting character, and he was completely cut out of the movie. But still, I mean, in general, Lord of the Rings has always been a masterpiece. It is a beautiful work of art. They've done, I've been watching, I watched Return of the King after, I had to make a marathon where I watched The Hobbit, and then I watched, or The Hobbit took a long time. And then I watched Lord of the Rings. I watched the first, Fellowship, and then Two Towers, and then I waited a couple months, and I finally got around to watching The Return of the King. And oh my God, it is such a sad, epic movie. It is a thing of beauty, and there are so many just sad parts. Although there's one scene in Return of the King that doesn't really make sense to me, and it's the scene where because we all know in Return of the King, or actually 2 Towers and Return of the King, that Eowyn wanted to be with Aragorn really badly. Didn't actually end up happening. And then there's a scene in Return of the King, it's after the big battle, and they have Faramir, who goes to I think it's the House of Healing, and he sees Eowyn, and suddenly they fall in love. It's just like that. It's like, oh yeah, they see each other, they're falling in love now. I didn't really understand that. It didn't really add up to me. I think it's sweet, but I just didn't think it needed more of an explanation, because they can't just look at each other suddenly and then just suddenly fall in love. That's not how love works. So I was a bit confused about why that was there. I mean, I didn't think it was a bad scene. I just didn't really understand why it was not explained very well, because you can't just have 2 characters fall in love at the first sight of when they first see each other, suddenly they're in love. That doesn't make sense, because that's not usually how it works.
And there really wasn't anything like that in the books. So
yeah,
I'll have to watch those again and tell you what.
Definitely, because that was a scene that I just did not understand. But overall, I think what Peter Jackson did with the Lord of the Rings was truly amazing. It was beautiful. The music is, oh my God, it's so precious. It is so amazing music. Howard Shore is one of the greatest composers, aside from John Williams, to make, you know, music to score Lord of the Rings. It's just so, it is so beautiful. Like, seriously, if you listen to that music, it is like there are some moments that you can almost cry because it's so beautiful. Like, I would literally, you know, watch, like, the final scene of Return of the King where they're all, like, saying goodbye on the horizon. And it's so beautiful, you almost want to cry. I mean, of course, you're already crying because they already say goodbye. And every time I watch a scene like in Lord of the Rings where someone cries, I'm like, oh, I can't stop crying. I can't, you know, I'm gonna start tearing up. But yeah, I love Lord of the Rings. I love what they did with that trilogy. Although Hobbit was the one that suffered a lot because there was a big thing with making the Hobbit that was really not good. It was different because in making of an Unexpected Journey, Peter Jackson did a different thing where he got lazy. He didn't really know, I guess he didn't remember what he did with the previous trilogy about, you know, scaling, and so he got Ian McKellen, the guy who played Gandalf in the first trilogy. He came back to play Gandalf again. It looks the same. He looks pretty much the same, and he basically couldn't figure out how to do the scaling thing. So he just put Ian McKellen in a separate studio. And then had, you know, another studio, you know, where he had like golf balls on a stick, so he could, that was what he was talking to for hours.
Yeah.
And then another scene with the actual dwarf actors and you know, of course, the Bilbo actor, and it was a completely separate studio. They had the complete separate studios, completely separate scenes. Of course, it later turned out it looked pretty good in the end, but that was the one scene that nearly made Ian McKellen quit acting forever. Like,
right.
Legitimately, it was so crazy because they had to, like, he was having a mental breakdown. I mean, this is Ian McKellen we're talking about. He is a extremely talented actor. He's amazing. He's a very, very good actor, and to have him actually break down on the set of Hobbit is first. And they had to, like, you know, bring gifts to him to actually cheer him up and, you know, get him back into sync. And that is just sad. If you have one of your best actors, Ian McKellen, who is one of the greatest Hollywood actors in Britain, to break down on set, that is just sad. So that's what made the movies not the best. Although they weren't bad. I don't think they were bad movies. They didn't do as well as Lord of the Rings did. And that's the sad part.
I didn't like them.
Yeah, I wasn't the big fan. I wasn't the biggest fan. I felt like they were longer and less entertaining than Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings was a, you know, it was long, but it was also really entertaining. It was sad and had all those amazing emotional moments.
It deserved to be long, and The Hobbit just kind of felt like it was longer than it needed to.
The Hobbit was just like it was shorter in length, but it felt longer, and it was like it went on and on. Like, I believe there was a sentence on The Hobbit or something. It was like, it took 40-something minutes to actually go on the journey. It literally took that long to actually go on the journey. It took him from the story of the first movie to actually get on where he's going on an adventure. It was like at the 40-something minute mark. 40 minutes of, you know, prelude to going on an adventure. That's crazy. But still, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. I honestly think that, you know, with what they had with Hobbit, it wasn't a bad trilogy. It just was weaker, and it wasn't the best out of the two. I think the Lord of the Rings, it was a better trilogy because they spent more time making it, and they did a better job with it, and they didn't use as much CGI, and they did always like a lot of miniatures, and they just did a way better job. And then of course Hobbit came around, and they just didn't realize that they could use the same thing they did for Lord of the Rings, and they just completely went crazy with it. And then they added characters that weren't even in the books, like Saruman and Galadriel. I don't even think she was in the books. I mean, they got all the essential characters, but they added so many characters that it made the trilogy not as good. And that's why it is it's not a good trilogy when you think about it. Although there are some good parts about it, but still. Yeah, that's really all I can say about that.
I'll give it that.
Yeah. What do you guys think about Lord of the Rings as a trilogy?
I haven't seen them, so
you should totally see them, dude. Like, seriously, you have missed out. It's been like 16 years, man. Like, seriously, I'm surprised you have not seen them. I'm kind of curious why you haven't seen them before.
I'm ashamed sometimes. Trust me.
Well, what caused you not to see them? I'm curious to know what's made you not see them yet.
I don't know. I think it's just because we never had it in our house growing up.
Weird. It's interesting.
My parents just didn't like how long it was, I guess.
Well, it's long, but it's not like compared to Hobbit. It's shorter.
Extended edition, 4 hours per movie.
Well, no, not quite. Fellowship of the Ring in theaters was 3 hours, but extended version, I think it was about half hour of extended material. I think each movie was about a half hour more of extended material, and then Return of the King, that one was, I think I think it's the whole movie itself is about 263 minutes, which in total combines to approximately 4 hours and 21 minutes, approximately, calculated wise in time, which is a fuck ton of time. I think if you split it in half, which they give you in two halves. It gives you in two halves. See, it ends up being like 2 hours or more, a little bit more of content, over the course of 2 discs. So you have 2 discs per part, and that's why it was so long, because you don't want to be in a movie for 4 hours. Because I remember when I was in the theater back in 2003 when the movie actually came out. I was with my mom and a friend, and we were in the theater, and it was, I think it was the battle scene where Faramir and his men were out into the Osgiliath place, which apparently was also the scene where Pippin was singing this song. I think the songs were so good. The songs were just amazing in that movie. Pippin's song was. I remember that scene where the dad of, or Dandriel, whatever he's called, I can't remember his actual name, but the Steward of Gondor, he's eating really gross, like he's eating this fruit and this chicken and this stuff. It is so disgusting not to eat. And at the same time, you have Pippin singing this amazing song. It is so amazing, and it's honestly, it's beautiful and it's sad at the same time. You know what I mean? Right. And all the songs, like you have Sheila, I was thinking Sheila Best and Spider. You have Smeagol's song, which is incredibly sad. You have the lyrics in general on that song are incredibly sad. You have Into the West, which is a incredibly beautiful and sad song. I think that's the beauty of Lord of the Rings, is they make these sad songs, but also they have some really beautiful, happy songs. And that's what makes that trilogy so good. But I remember in that theater, I was at that point of the movie, I wanted water. I don't know what took so long to get water, but I finally got water. But it was like one of those things where it's like you want it to end, but it's not going to end for like another hour or so. But yeah, I think I've talked way too long tonight. I haven't really given you guys a chance to talk at all. I've been rambling too much.
That's fine. Oh.
So, actually, Lucas, how about we go ahead and educate him on Lord of the Rings?
Lord of the Rings is the absolute best.
Yes. He doesn't know what it is. Explain it to him. I can explain it, but explain to him exactly what Lord of the Rings is and why it's so amazing.
Well, books or movies? Because
movies.
They're both very, very different.
The movies, obviously.
Okay, the movies. So, the movies are this, like, epic fantasy adventure story.
Yeah.
And there's this jerk face called Sauron, and he has a ring that gives him power. It's basically like one of the Horcruxes from Harry Potter, but there's just one of them. And he's going to use that ring to come back to life and, like, murder everyone. And so they have to go throw the ring in a volcano and blow it up.
Just because they can. It's like, oh, we'll just throw the ring in the... Actually, there was a really funny video. It was HISHE on Lord of the Rings. It's the ring must be cast back into the fiery chasm from whence it came. One of you must do this. And then Gandalf's like, I have an idea that just might work. And then they just take an eagle down to the mountain dome and then just toss the ring in. It was hilarious. I mean, seriously, it was one of the funniest HISHEs out there. I mean, they have made an Incredibles one recently, but it is so funny because it's like the perfect ending. It's like, yeah, you know what we should do instead of, I think especially at the point where in Fellowship of the Ring where Gandalf's like, fly you fools, that was, telling them to fly, and they didn't understand him, but like it would have ended way better if they had just gotten the eagles and then just gone over the Mount Doom and then just dropped the ring in the fire. But that's just an example. Okay. Anyway, go ahead and continue.
So unlike the books, which is really, really slow paced, lots and lots of lore and like backstory. The movies are really, really focused on the characters and what they go through, and not to say that the books aren't, just that the books are slower in getting there.
Yeah.
But the movies really do a good job at getting you, like, endearing you to the characters and making you really care about what's happening. And then lots and lots of fantasy shenanigans later.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about both trilogies, they were both directed by the same director, Peter Jackson, who is this New Zealand director, also known as Kiwi. He has this, like, you know, Australian mixed accent. He's like, sounds Australian, but it's actually just from New Zealand. And he's been in both trilogies, and it's actually really amazing because it's a totally New Zealand production. There are some American actors, like you have I think it's Viggo Mortensen, you have Elijah Wood, and you have Sean Astin. They're the only American actors. I mean, I think there's other like American producers and all that stuff, but it's mainly New Zealand, and there are some Australian actors and some, I want to say there's some British actors, but it's mainly New Zealand actors who, you know, put on accents. But I mean, to think that the same director did both trilogies, that is crazy. I mean,
the second trilogy, the Hobbit trilogy, just reeked of like executive meddling. It was pretty clear that it wasn't like Peter Jackson sitting down and thinking this would be great. It was some suit at Warner Brothers like, oh, this would make us a ton of money. Yeah.
But it's also the storytelling that they had in the trilogies that really brought the universe to life and made it what it was. And that's the beauty of those movies, is because the stories are so rich and so amazing, they were able to bring that to life and make an unbelievable story, make an unbelievable world that you couldn't imagine, and make it real. You know, whether it be the scoring of the movies, or the characters bringing them to life, or the locations, or any of that stuff. It's still truly a masterpiece to look at. It's like incredible because a lot of the characters like Legolas or Gimli, those two characters, I mean, they're pretty awesome. But like Legolas himself, I feel like he was better in Lord of the Rings, although there were still some ridiculous parts in Lord of the Rings, but he was better in Lord of the Rings than he was in The Hobbit, because the issue with The Hobbit, with Orlando Bloom's character, Legolas, it was that in The Hobbit he was supposed to be a younger version, like, I don't know, 1,000 years or younger than he was in Lord of the Rings. But unfortunately, because the actor was older looking, it wasn't all that convincing. Although he looked relatively the same. I mean, he looked a little older, but they did it pretty well. He looked relatively the same, but it was still a problem because although he was playing the same character in a younger version, it didn't really work because he was so older now, and it didn't fit with the movie. But still, I mean, even with that, it was a pretty good movie. But like, you know, he was some pretty crazy things, like in the Battle of the Five Armies, there's a ridiculous CGI moment where he's breaking the laws of physics and climbing up these falling stones. It was like the most ridiculously CGI moment, because most of the characters you see in those movies are completely CGI. There's not. Right. I don't think there's. I think there's maybe one or two practical effects, but most of the creatures are all CGI, which is incredibly stupid. But the most incredible thing about, incredibly stupid thing about that trilogy was that one scene where Legolas was climbing up those stones where they were falling, and you could literally be like, that isn't physically possible. You can't do that. And that was the ridiculous part. But it wasn't as bad in Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings, although there were some pretty crazy, stupid moments in Lord of the Rings, like, for example, in Two Towers, the Helm's Deep scene where he's, surfing on the shield and, going down the stairs and then knocks out, kills a orc in the process. That scene, although it's pretty crazy and awesome, it is kind of ridiculous if you think about it. It had its moments where it's like, really, but it's still a pretty kick-ass moment. I mean, especially, I remember watching the scene where he's on the Oliphant, or the Mimikil, and like, he's just badass, and then of course, you have the comic relief where he kills the Mimikil, or the Oliphant in this case, and he slides off it, and he's like, I'm awesome, and the game is like, that's only counts as one, because the funny thing about the relationship between Gimli and Legolas was that they were like every battle they were in, they would have these little like counting games where they would count every enemy they killed, which is a pretty funny part of the movies. But the one thing about both trilogies that I found really interesting was the relationship between elves and dwarfs from Hobbit to Lord of the Rings, because in Hobbit we see that the elves and the dwarfs hate each other. They despise working with each other. Like there's a whole scene in Hobbit in Mirkwood where Legolas was like, don't think I wouldn't kill you, dwarf. And that's like because apparently now the elves hate the dwarf for some reason. But then you fast forward to Lord of the Rings, and Legolas and Gimli are best friends. I didn't really understand that. So
they don't really like each other at first. Like, they kind of were begrudgingly working together early on, and then, like, became friends, but...
Yeah, I just didn't really get it. I was really confused about why that was even a thing in the first place, because, like, it didn't make sense. But at the same time, it was still a really interesting relationship they had. Especially just the comedy in general was pretty funny. Heck, there was even a I can't remember the site what it was called, but it was using the Badger meme thing. I think it was the Badger meme in the scene where they're opening the gate and they're welcoming the Lothlorien soldiers. They used that exact meme in the movie, like a parody of it, like the parody of that scene. They just inserted a bunch of badgers in the scene. It was pretty funny. I don't remember the site it was on, but it was actually pretty freaking funny. But point aside, I think that Lord of the Rings is honestly one of the best trilogies to come out of a book series. And I apparently was watching the appendices, which is basically the special features, and apparently the story of the Lord of the Rings was so big that you had to like get into 3 parts, which is ridiculously crazy. But anyway, go ahead and finish talking to go ahead and finish explaining to Steven, why Lord of the Rings is an amazing trilogy. Because
I'm
finished?
Sure I know. Okay, I've heard it.
Have you gotten the idea of it, Steven? Because if you don't know really what it's about, like the characters.
I know what it's basically about. It's a fantasy adventure where they bring this ring to a lava pit that they throw in. That they throw the ring in. There's all sorts of stuff.
Well, there's also the characters. There's Frodo. There's Sam. There's Elrond, there's Arwen, Eowyn, Aemir, Aragorn, Gandalf, Pippin, Merry, Legolas, Gimli, and Boromir and Faramir. And that's pretty much the main characters. There's also Gollum, who's a creature who, if you don't know who Gollum is, he is essentially this. It was a hobbit called Smeagol. It was actually his backstory was explored in Return of the King, the beginning scene of Return of the King, and basically he's this hobbit who one day goes fishing with his cousin Deagle Deagle. That's what they have, right? I don't know how. I think I'm pretty sure it's Deagle. And Deagle gets he catches a fish, but it pulls him under, and he discovers the ring.
Don't spoil it if he doesn't know who Gollum is.
He doesn't. He's never seen it, and he's probably not going to see it. So I'm gonna go ahead and tell him. So basically, it's his it's Smeagol's birthday. He wants the ring, so he basically chokes his brother. Not his brother, his cousin to death. I want to say it was his brother, but I don't know. It might have been his brother, it might have been his cousin. I don't know. Chokes this Deagle person to death and gets the ring for himself, and then puts it on. But because of the power of the ring, he it basically poisons his mind for 500 years, causing him to turn into a creature called Gollum, essentially, which is also the power of the ring. Like, the ring is called the Precious, and it, consumes Smeagol, essentially. It's a pretty fucking sad story, but... Yeah, essentially. It's actually a pretty sad story because there's a song at the end of Two Towers, which is incredibly sad, and it's about Smeagol, essentially. It's basically Smeagol's life, what happened to him, because it was actually explored in the prelude, he got poisoned for 500 years as Gollum, and, the song of Smeagol is you can't go home, you're lost, you can't go home, you're alone, all that stuff, and it's incredibly sad, but it's also beautiful. Howard Shore, he composed it. It is honestly one of the most beautiful stories you could ever, watch, or anything like that, but, yeah, that's pretty much it. There's also a vital character in the Lord of the Rings trilogy called Bilbo Baggins, who is also in The Hobbit, and he is this hobbit who gets who's the first one to encounter the ring, essentially. And the Ring of Power is this powerful ring that can turn you invisible, and is made by this evil Lord Sauron guy who wants to take over the world, basically. So that's basically a summary of Lord of the Rings for you.
Yep, it's pretty great.
It's a pretty great.
I've heard it's good.
Yeah, they actually have real life swords, shields, and chainmail, all that stuff. Everything is real. The interesting thing about Aragorn, though, that I want to point out, is that the actor, he actually had when they were filming the Lord of the Rings, he actually had a sword on him at all times. Like, he'd always bring his sword with him wherever he went, because he was obsessed with that sword. It was something that I never really thought about. It's pretty funny to actually have to be in love with the sword and always have the sword with you. That's crazy. So yeah, that's just the Lord of the Rings in a nutshell. I mean, there's a lot of amazing actors that actually got to play these characters. For example, there's Elijah Wood, who also, and this will be kind of going on a I'm not changing subject here for just briefly because it is related. Elijah Wood, who was the actor who played Frodo, he was also in a show called Red vs. Blue, which is made by a production company called Rooster Teeth Productions. Also, a couple of employees there actually made a Lord of the Rings series journey thing documentary called A Simple Walk in the Mordor, which is actually a really, really interesting series they made. Chris Damaris and Carrie Shocker, as two employees at Rooster Teeth, basically what they did was they wanted to complete a journey that took Frodo and Sam 3 movies to complete and do it in 6 days. So that the episodes basically were about them going to New Zealand, flying onto the Hobbit location, or the place where they filmed Hobbiton in New Zealand, and then walk all the way to the film location where they filmed Mount Doom by foot, all by foot. They didn't take a car or anything. They just did it all by foot, and
actually,
it's incredible. I mean, it isn't as beautiful as the movie, but just seeing them take that effort and take that journey is actually pretty darn cool. Especially if you like some of the content that Rooster Teeth produces. This was actually really, I mean, it was meant to kind of celebrate the release of the first Hobbit movie, but it's still pretty cool. But so the main characters, the main actors are Elijah Wood, Sean Astin, Dominic Monaghan, Billy Boyd, Ian McKellen, Christopher Lee, who unfortunately passed away. I think it was last year. Was it?
No.
I don't know. He passed away. He's like 93, and he passed away like last year or something. I think so. I don't know. I think it might have been the year before that. I don't know. But we also has Ian McKellen, Viggo Mortensen, Orlando Bloom, who is one of my favorite actors. It has also Sean Bean, who he's like the dying guy. He always every role he plays, he dies, including roles I don't really care about. But it also has Liv Tyler, Bernard Lee. I think Bernard Hill. I think his name is actually. I think it's Bernard Lee. A lot of actually even Carl Urban, who was Bones in Star Trek. So a lot of talented actors.
Right.
And that's just some of them. I mean, I don't even think I've counted the ones in the rest of the movies. But there's also in Hobbit. There was also Morton Freeman, who played Watson in Sherlock. So a lot of amazing actors. So I would recommend Lord of the Rings to you very much. So check it out. Yeah. Go at it, watch it. It's long, but it's epic. It's awesome. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's all that crazy stuff. But anyway, is that all we have for tonight? Is there anything else you guys want to discuss tonight, or?
I think that's probably. I mean,
really? Do you think we've exhausted our topic for tonight, or what?
Probably.
Okay. I mean, we are actually over time right now. We are well over time, so I think that's a good place to end it now. So yeah, thank you for listening to this episode of Madhouse. Pretty good idea to do this. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. Fun. Yeah, it was pretty fun. I enjoyed talking about it. Even though Steven here had no idea what Lord of the Rings was, we were very surprised.
It's just I've never seen it.
That's really something you gotta fix, man. I'm surprised. Like, I would have thought you would have seen it by now.
I thought I told you that a while back.
Yeah, I just never would have thought you'd never seen it before. You really, I think you would like it. I think you would very much like it because it's a great movie. Yeah. I would really recommend it. You would love it. But yeah. Anyway, that does it for this episode of Madhouse. We hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for listening. If you did enjoy this episode, please hit that like button. We all really appreciate it. Appreciate the support. And if you're new to this channel, subscribe for more episodes of this podcast. And also, go over to Steve's channel and check out his channel. Some of his old videos. He hasn't uploaded in about a year or so. Mainly because he's busy, but nevertheless, check him out. He has some pretty cool content, nevertheless. And yeah, we hope you enjoyed it, and we will be back next time with another episode. Alright, bye-bye.
Bye.